Welcome.
Thank you, Kate.
This is Shams Tabriz, who is my mentor, and we're talking on the subject of infidelity. And today we're going to be talking about 6 reasons why people cheat. So why people get into affairs. And we were just talking before starting the video, and we're just saying that under these 6 reasons comes disempowerment. Did you want to speak to that a bit?
Yes. Disempowerment is when you are not fully feeling free, a sense of self-love, and knowing clearly your worthiness, your ability to express and choose with strength and from strength in life. And so often that leads us to make choices that express or have some form of compromise attached to them. But when we are truly empowered, we would not choose for compromise.
Yeah, beautiful. So we're going to go into the 6 reasons. And the first one is just this desire and hunger for love, feeling empty, not fulfilled completely in love. And then we can experience it outside, and then we want to go for it.
Yeah, it's an epidemic, I would say. This feeling, how many people are walking around in the world feeling unloved.
Yeah.
And so it's interesting because I'm going to throw a bit of a spin on it. I think it takes courage to choose for love, even though that choice may manifest in a way that ultimately can be compromising or unfulfilling. But this idea that it stems from a feeling of an emptiness, is that how you described it? I think that's completely valid. And it's natural for someone to want to choose to experience something deeper, something more compelling, something more meaningful, something that fills the heart.
Yeah, and sometimes we don't necessarily know that that's what we're feeling. We're just used to this feeling of not true fulfillment, and we may have not yet experienced that. We may be used to feeling somewhat empty. I don't even like fully using that word, because if it's what we're used to, then we can't fully connect to that. But then when this aliveness or this richness in love comes out, or we feel seen, we feel validated, we feel wanted, then suddenly that void is filled.
Correct. And oftentimes these patterns actually originate in childhood.
Yeah.
Often a situation in which children haven't been fully attended to in the way that children need to be attended to. And when I use this word attended to, I am literally referring to a child needs attention. Attention is love. And when a child lacks attention for whatever reason, and there are many families in which life is hectic, the demands are great, there's too much going on, or there is dissension among the parents, and so the child or the children are then neglected. But it's in that space of some form of neglect or some form of stress that the child is left hungering for a fulfillment that, as you say, they don't even know they're missing.
Yeah.
But it is that then can translate itself in adulthood in searching for something and feeling unfulfilled in it.
Yeah. What comes up for me as you share that is just this feeling of, maybe listeners or even myself in the past would have been like, but I did grow up in a really rich environment.
Yes, that can be true as well. And yet there is a sense of incompleteness in an affair relationship.
Yeah.
And so as nourishing as perhaps your childhood may have been, there is still a belief that you're holding on to. And beliefs are formed out of experiences that you have in life.
Yeah.
Correct. Even experiences that we have had. And some of these experiences we might not even be able to access.
Yeah.
You see, we might not be fully aware of how certain experiences have impacted us. in some regards, there are memories that are not even retained. Right? And so a picture is painted about a childhood or an adolescence or the early years of your life that might appear to be rather beautiful, but the closer that you examine it, you will find, no, actually, there were some things going on there that left me feeling unfulfilled, unloved, unseen, unnoticed, or compromised.
Yeah.
The incidence of children being unsafe in their own homes is far greater than most realize.
Yeah.
Far, far greater. And so I'm describing it this way because I'm not focusing on abuse, I'm not focusing on neglect, but I'm saying just this sense of a child feeling unsafe.
And when you're saying unsafe, I get did you feel like you could fully lean on your parents and know that they would hold you fully in your experience and see you completely and validate you, and you wouldn't feel silly or worse or shameful in all of that?
Absolutely. And did you have the attention, the environment, the attention, the love, the support that you needed at every phase of your childhood?
Yeah.
You see, often we can say, oh, I remember my adolescence was fine, or I remember when I was 8 years old, that was a beautiful time in my life. But understand that the needs of a child evolve over time. And throughout your childhood, there are different needs that are needed. There's a different form of attention and love and guidance and even discipline that is required in order for a child to learn to be strong in this world.
Yeah.
And we can often find it very difficult to paint an unhappy picture of our childhood, because the moment we do that, it feels as if we're betraying our family, we're betraying our parents, we're making them out to be something that is unloving, and that doesn't need to be true. But there is a requirement for us to be very deeply honest with ourselves so that we can understand what has caused us to hold on to beliefs and to form patterns where we make choices in life that don't truly fulfill us.
Yeah. Yeah. Beautiful. Okay, so the next point is the fear of intimacy and being seen. So why could this fear cause us actually to then get into relationships that are outside of our primary relationship?
Because your primary relationship affords you the most proximate possibility of experiencing that depth of intimacy and being seen. Because it's already a commitment that has been formed. And so that can actually begin to feel unsafe.
Yeah.
And there can be many realities around the relationship not being fulfilling, and there's disharmony, but the reality is that's the most easy to access relationship in which you can feel fully seen. And so when that is a condition within you, that it does not feel safe to be that completely vulnerable to someone else, it becomes easy to close off quickly and turn elsewhere.
Yeah.
And sometimes it's not quick. It can happen slowly. But there is a closed offness because it feels too... Well, let's use the word vulnerable.
Yeah.
That vulnerability does not feel easy. There's a resistance to being vulnerable.
But you may have other stories of that guard you from feeling like it's vulnerability and more, well, I'm just not XYZ there, so I want to...
Exactly. And this is where I feel that safety becomes a big part of this work.
Yeah.
Understanding what safety is and how you experience safety. And most people that I work with, there's an exploration needed there. They may not even be able to realize the degree to which they don't feel safe in the world. And sometimes my insights are able to help point them in the right direction so that they can begin to surface what's going on behind the scenes.
Yeah.
You've experienced that as well.
Oh, fully.
Right?
Fully.
And so safety is a big part of this. We tend to grow into our adulthood not realizing that we don't feel completely safe in this world.
And we'll also say stories in order to validate that we are safe, so that we don't highlight actually where we don't feel safe.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And it is that underlying feeling of unsafety that then results in the choices that we make in life that often will be unfulfilling, unrewarding.
Yeah. Beautiful. Let's go on to number 3, and that is addicted to external validation.
Well, that says it all, is an unfulfillment within self leads to the need for others to validate us.
Yeah.
Again, I would say when we haven't learned that our true sense of well-being arises from within. When we learn from early ages that, if I do things a certain way, if I operate in this way, then I will be fine. Those are the people who end up ultimately even choosing careers that are very precise, meaning almost formulaic. That if I do a certain thing a certain way, then I will be successful, or I will earn my wage, or I will do well, or whatever the case may be. But people who have their own intrinsic self, an inner sense of having learned to feel fulfilled by their own choices in life, they tend to choose things that are a little bit more unique or creative or self-expressive.
Yeah.
They will choose pathways in business or entertainment, or even in more traditional professions, but where there is more room for their own unique creativity to manifest. And so fundamentally, we will never feel fully appreciated or validated when we are only seeking for that appreciation and fulfillment outside of ourselves.
Yeah, absolutely. Next one is avoidance.
Speak to that.
So what immediately comes up to me is, if things aren't fulfilling in your current life, then you will, instead of addressing what is going on there and creating fulfillment in that, or closing things out, or addressing it fully and moving through it, which may be uncomfortable, then it's just, let me go fulfill that need where it's available right there. You don't need to address what's here. Immediately you can get that need fulfilled, and yet you're in avoidance of addressing the root of what's going on.
Correct. And I think within that, there are many different elements that could be at play. One of them would be, in my mind, a feeling of defeat, where perhaps it's very easy to feel defeated. That sense of hopelessness or uselessness. It's useless for me to even try and do anything.
Yeah.
That might be a pattern that arises very easily in your life.
Yeah.
Ultimately, I would say that this falls very much under the umbrella of feeling disempowered generally in life. Just not feeling as if you can be in command of your life and your circumstances. And
like life happens to you, and
exactly, life happens to you, and try as I might, I'm not even going to try, because if I were to try, this and this and this and this and this would end up happening. I've experienced that before, so better that I not try and I just divert myself and I just focus my energies where I can receive some, something that feels good.
Yeah.
And so, again, that is natural that you would feel that way. But the path to liberation is a path of empowering yourself to not feel defeated in life. These are the beliefs that form as a result of experiences that we have, sometimes in childhood, sometimes in our young adulthood, sometimes even later in adulthood. We have experiences that defeat us, and then we come to believe that we're powerless. And that powerlessness shows up in how we're walking through life. And that's a shame. And I don't mean shame in a way of shaming yourself. I'm saying that's a shame.
Yeah.
That you would lose your sense of vitality and worth in this world.
Yeah. All that you could do and create for your life if you felt it was possible.
Exactly. My vision for the world is people who are truly free and healthy and empowered and able to choose for a life of brilliance, where all of those shadows, all of those invisible and visible things that interfere with our complete fulfillment are resolved, not by avoiding them, not by pushing them aside, but by examining them and resolving them. And it's through that resolution that we become quite naturally more filled up with ourselves.
Yeah.
And then it's not a stretch of the imagination to say, I shoot for the stars.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, absolutely. There is really this feeling of when you're doing therapy or counseling or personal development and spiritual development and all of these things, this feeling of like, is this actually doing anything? Is this actually getting anywhere? Or am I just moving round in circles?
Yeah. In a lot of cases, I have encountered people who have just been on the hamster wheel, trying so many different things to get help and to improve their lives and to gain a sense of peace and confidence and clarity in life. And there is a lot of hamster wheel spinning going on in this world, and it's unfortunate. But in my experience, it doesn't have to be that way.
Yeah.
In my experience, if there is a genuine desire to heal from the wounds of old that define you in a limited way, that you can, in fact, resolve all of those, and you can examine your life, and you can alter the choices that you make, and you can awaken to an empowered way of being in this world where nothing holds you back. And, you know, whether you're a farmer or whether you are an entertainer or whether you are a business leader or whether you are a pastor, you can lead a life of complete freedom and fulfillment and passion.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so number 5, lack of responsibility and entitlement. And I was just saying that this really kind of folds back into the one before, which is avoidance. Because if we're not fully taking responsibility for areas of our life that aren't working, and yet we feel entitled to feel fulfilled, then we're going to go get that elsewhere. But we're not actually going about fulfilling our needs in a clean, healthy, and communicating way.
Yeah. Honestly, I'm just going to paint a picture.
Yeah.
And it's an extreme one, but I think it's worthwhile to look at it from this perspective for a moment. I've encountered people in my work who are like spoiled adolescents. And they take what they want, they do what they wish, and they're not concerned about the impact that it's having on others. And some of these are men who will have a relationship because they want it, and when they're fulfilled, they discard it.
Yeah.
And even when they're in that relationship, they are saying and doing whatever they need to say and do in order to get what they want. Now, this is an extreme example. I get that. But that's how entitlement can show up.
And if you relate it back to like a pattern that was like worked when you were little, and that pattern was never resolved, then it's no wonder that you're going to experience it in adulthood.
Exactly. And in my opinion, it takes tremendous courage for people, even in this extreme situation, to want to say, hey, I'm noticing that I'm behaving in a way that really is not serving me. It's certainly not serving others in my life.
Yeah.
And maybe it's time for me to re-examine and figure out where I've gone wrong, or where I haven't. There's something that I speak of often. It's called the incomplete childhood. And what I refer to when I say the incomplete childhood is it's almost as if there can be certain points in our childhood where something occurs in our family, in our dynamic with. It could be that the parents are not present at this particular time, but where it could be a trauma takes place, where there is a certain natural phase of development that was interrupted. And so say that a young man then doesn't learn through his adolescence to respect others. He is going through the experience of fulfilling himself and his needs and his urges, but he hasn't learned how to do that in a healthy way.
Yeah.
And it is often this incomplete childhood that results in an adulthood in which we're conducting ourselves in a very unhealthy way, in a very damaging way. And this is what I refer to where it takes tremendous courage for us to be willing to say, is there possibly something here that I am missing? And this doesn't require blame. It doesn't require self-shaming. It doesn't require carrying the burden of guilt or judging yourself. None of those things. It just requires an honest examination of self and a willingness to admit that, yeah, I can see that there are some patterns here that I could alter. And so when you speak of entitlement, that entitlement often arises when there isn't that willingness.
Yeah.
And entitlement can almost get stuck because to look at it leads to judgment and shame. And we naturally will want to avoid those things.
And serious judgment and shame.
Absolutely.
Like, if it's something that's been repeating, then it is painful to look at.
Absolutely. But if instead of the judgment and shame, we can decide from the onset, I'm not going to enter into judgment. I want to understand myself better so that I can be a better version of myself in this world. That's when true healing and resolution and empowerment can occur.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Change will take place.
Absolutely.
And the last one, number 6, is just this place of living from a dysregulated nervous system. In affair relationships, people are often used to living in a dysregulated state where you might be used to heightened anxiety and unaware of it, or used to highs and then crashes and then wanting to feel good again. And so with infidelity, there's a lot of secrecy, there's a lot of uncertainty, there's a lot of craving for more and not being able to get it. And if your baseline of your nervous system has been coming from an anxious place in the past, it's really not that unfamiliar to be experiencing it again in an affair relationship.
Absolutely. It's been my experience that the origin of this is often trauma. And trauma comes in many forms. Trauma isn't necessarily a single experience. Trauma can be that which is sustained over time. Neglect can lead to a trauma response. But it is my experience that often this kind of a condition that you have described is a result of trauma. And so in situations such as this, it doesn't benefit to focus too much on the patterns as they are manifesting in the now. So the patterns of, the highs and the lows and the choices that emerge from that. I think the resolution to this is found in examining the trauma itself.
Yeah, absolutely. Noticing that this state that you're living in isn't a healthy way to be in. It isn't something that,
And that it's beyond your control.
Yeah.
You see, often those who are experiencing trauma responses such as this, they feel responsible for it. And they're frustrated with themselves. Why can't I handle this better? Why can't I handle myself better?
Yeah.
And that there's an underlying self-frustration, self-recrimination, self-judgment, even a sense of, am I broken? Right? I've encountered that before as well, where people will ask me, well, I must be broken for me to be behaving in this way. And I would say no, that when we hold on to trauma in this way, when we have unresolved, unhealed trauma within us, we can't fully be responsible for the way that we're navigating in life.
Yeah.
And this requires so much compassion to literally, it's almost as if you need the burden lifted off your own shoulders.
Oh, fully. operating in survival. It's just meeting the needs of safety and helping your nervous system feel safe in a moment, as opposed to what's in my best alignment and going to serve me in the long run.
Exactly.
Yeah. Yes, that concludes us with the 6 reasons why people cheat. So I hope that helps you. If you are looking for support in healing and really resolving a lot of these wounds that are causing you to live in a compromised way of being, not a fully fulfilled state of being, then we have private mentorships with Shams and myself, couples mentorships for people going through infidelity, and we also have a support community for you to go and connect with other people going through the situation, and also to have group coaching. Beautiful.
Thank you, Kate.
Thank you.